Flying device here is we call it the Bass Magnus, but it's basically because we're fishing for sea bass. It's effectively a Polar Magnus in pink, dub body with pink eyes. You can use different coloured eyes, you don't have to use pink eyes, and it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So it's been one of my best flies. I've had a lot of bass over 65 centimeters on this one, a few over 70. So I thought, look, cheers at this stage. The Polar Magnus is a seatrout fly that's used in the Baltic, and for us anyway, fishing for sea bass in Irish waters, particularly over sandy areas where the sea bass feed on sand shrimp, it's a really good pattern. You can tie it without these eyes, but I find it works really well. And if the eyes have some UV paint on them, it's good in low light conditions. There's also a black foam back version with glow eyes that's quite good to use at night time. So I might do just a tine of the black one at some stage. So it's one of my favorites in the dark, and it's kind of it's up to the tire. I don't put the eyes on the foam version myself. I just think it kind of defeats the purpose of it. But let's get into how to tie this killer. So I'm going to tie this one on an RX light stinger size 4. It's the NS122, and I would probably have a good few as well in the smaller size, which is a 6. But I'm just going to tie this. It would be easier for you guys just for seeing it, and it works fine for bass in this size as well. The calmer it is and brighter it is, I tend to go with the smaller size. So I'm going to use some fairly heavy thread. So this is a Vivas 240, which I use sometimes for some deer hair work as well. But you could probably use the Semperfly 3/0, something like that. And white's a good colour for this fly. So just going to come down a little bit, come back up. I'm going to catch in some bead chain eyes. So they're at a little bit of weight, not massive, but enough just, I think, to put some movement in the fly. So I'm adding these really, I think, in relation to the movement of the fly between strips rather than to look like eyes. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you're putting eyes at the back that, you know, it's a help in terms of eyes. So this is the stuff, just bead chain from a stopper, from a sink or a bat or something like that, in silver. So apologies to my wife if there's no chain on any stoppers in the house. I'm using the big scissors here to cut that. I don't want to use my tine scissors, so just an old big scissors that was around. And I'm using the bigger size one because it's going to sit across the hook here a little bit better, just the width of it, he says when he drops it. I'm going to catch the bit underneath. I don't know if it really matters too much, but I'm going to catch them in underneath anyway, and just catch them in with a figure of 8. Just try and keep them lined up. So if you're happy with the way they're sitting, try and reasonably happy with it, we'll add a drop of super glue. And I'll turn it over, and I'm just going to add another drop on this side. Not sure if that came out. Go again. Just this time of the day where I'm tying, the light's a little bit against me, but I think it's fine for you guys for seeing what's happening. A little bit more of a challenge for me. So I'm going to bring the thread down while that glue is starting to dry. Give it a little spin there, just want to tighten it up. So next I'm going to add a tail, and you have a few options. You can use craft fur or pseudo hair. I like the look of the stuff, but I'm not sure about the movement. I use it on some of them. So this is a tan version with the barred effects, which looks nice on shrimps. You add a bit of flash to that, so you can use this stuff, which I use in a lot of my flies. Just pull a piece out here. This is a flash brush for pike flies, and basically you're supposed to wind it up for really large. This is the XL. I buy it to use as a flash, either as a tail or over a tail, and it's a nice barred effect. So I don't think I've ever seen anyone else using that material for that purpose. Someone probably does, but it's really versatile. It's really good to use it on a lot of different flies for different species, and you can get it in different colors. Obviously that's a good color for shrimp, the barred one, gray and black bars with UV through it as well. And having a bit of UV in this fly seems to be really useful. For the tail, then, if I was trying to tan one, use this stuff called it's kind of a marabou barred, chickaboo I think it's called as well. Or if you haven't got that and you have a cape, on the back of your cape down low here, if it's a soft cape, you'll often have feathers that you can use. I've pulled off quite a few off this now. Let's see if I can find another one. Possibilities here. There's one. Let's get some grey chickaboo, I think. So got two feathers here. This one looks slightly better. So you could use two feathers, but if I think one will do, I'll go with one. So I'm just going to catch that in. That's about the length. You don't want it too long, so about the length of the hook. You'll see a lot of the actual Polar Magnus Baltic sea trout flies are tied with quite short tails, which makes sense to me for sea trout, but we're fishing for sea bass, so say about that. I think just one feather is fine. So we'll go with that. We'll add a bit of flash, so I could use that pike flash. I'm going to put one turn under this tail just to keep it from wrapping. These are too long, they're inclined to wrap and stick, so we don't want that. I'm going to use some crystal flash in UV pearl, and one or two strands down each side is enough. So I just pulled off a long strand here, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to double it. Just be careful when you're using crystal flash on flies. You don't want to stretch it, or it loses the crinkle, and it really, like this stuff would sort of lose its UV effect if you do that. So I'm going to trim it just slightly longer than the length of the tail. It's up to you. Length of the tail is fine. I'm just going to get two strands down, if you like, down your side or the opposite side of the tail here. Trim those around the same length as the ones on this side. Here we go. So what I'm going to do now is just going to add a little ball of dubbing. I have a bit mixed here already, which is handy. And this is a mixture of pink and UV white. So let's close these for a second just to show you. So you're looking at SLF prism, glister, that type of dubbing I find for this pattern works the best. Just adds that bit of flash. So let's open this again because I'm going to need another bit of that dubbing in a second. So for this particular one, it's one of my favorite ones, which, as I say, has caught me a lot of what I consider to be quite big bass on a fly rod over here. Anything over 65 centimeters to me is a good bass. So you can tie this with sand colors, sand and white mix is good, grey UV is good, and as I say, I just find the pink, something about it that it works well. So up to yourself. Try a few different variants for your own area. So I'm going to get some eyes here. So these are monofilament eyes that are burned and dipped to give this effect. So these are made by my friend Chris, which is great because I don't have to make them. I'm going to use the big scissors because this is heavy nylon. The great thing about when Chris makes these is there's usually the nylon has a bit of a natural curve to it. So I'm going to tie, and I want them just going back. You see when I tie on your side, but just beyond the bend near the start of the tail. Get the other one. So I like the pink eyes on the pink fly. It's not bad. They'll squeeze in a little bit more. Now you can do all sorts of things with those ends. I just trimmed them. Again, bass don't have teeth, so I'm not too worried. And I don't want to use my tying scissors for this, so I'm just going to trim them to about there, just short to the eye, and just help with a bit of taper to the body of the fly as well. So come back up. I'm just going to put a little squeeze on them. You can bend them out or manipulate them yourself. I like them just a small bit. I don't want them way out, and I don't want them stuck together. That's about the size of it. So just for added security, just going to put a drop of glue over those. Okay, I'm going to add a rib. I have some mono here. It's kind of a mono thread, which is fine. You probably, arguably, don't need a rib on this because bass don't have teeth. So I've tied these before without a rib, and the hackles didn't come away or anything scary like that from catching bass anyway. So I'm just going to try and get that out of my way. It's a shiny thread, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a bit of waxing. It might just help with the dubbing, keep the dubbing on the thread a bit as I go along. That glister dubbing it's not like dry fly dubbing. It's a bit wiry, we'd say, around here. So I'm just going to get a pinch of white UV, and I'm going to get probably about twice as much in the pink glister, and I'm going to mix them together. Now, I'm not going to bother with coffee grinders and stuff like that. You could if you wanted to make, if you were tying like commercially loads and loads of these, they'd probably be worth just getting the dubbings and mixing them in a batch and so on. But no, that's fine for what we're doing. I might need a little bit more, we'll see. So just catch that in. We can have it a bit more bulky at the start here, like so, and then we'll just taper it down a bit more as we go. Starting to like the look of that. I'm just going to go as far as close enough to these eyes, so you can see there's a slight taper. Let's get one or two more turns it up in there. That's perfect. Then we're going to need a hackle off our hackles. I'm going to pull off a fairly long one here. That one, I think. So it's up to you with this what way you want to tie it in. If you want to catch it in by the tip and have slightly longer fibers back here, or whether you want to catch it in by the stem. I'm going to catch this in by the stem, and I'm going to catch it in around here, so that I want some of this, just me personally, I want some of the softer ones at the start. I just like the effect when I velcro this out at the end, so I'm just going to catch that in a couple of turns and then start winding it down. You go a little bit close together for the first ones and gradually space them out a bit more as I go. Okay, locate my rib, just go through that, just check that's okay. Yeah. And then just tie that off. So 2 turns behind, a turn or 2 in front should be fine. Trim it off, trim off your hackle. Okay, sure, again you're happy with everything here, and you could add rubber legs here, you could add some duck for the back, so just pick up a feather here, just give you an idea. You could add some silver mallard or grey mallard, you know. There's versions of this where you just give 1 or 2 turns of mallard at the front, but just to give you an idea, just give a shrimp back. You could use shrimp backs that you buy. Probably have some lying around because I've done a few variants. On this particular pinkish one, you could use some mallard dyed pink. Just give a nice effect. I'll just get one out there just so you can see. These are tied a really pale pink. So just strip it off to give you an idea what it would look like, you know, something like that. Could do that. I'm not going to. I think the original fly is pretty good the way it is. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of dubbing around the eyes, very, very thin, because I want to just try and keep my taper. So there's literally just some very small bits that fell out when I was dubbing on the fly, so that'll be fine. Just make life easier, just going to put a hitch in there and I'm going to whip finish. There's a little bit of dubbing sticking out. You could get a lighter and heat that and so on and all that sort of thing, but fish won't mind too much. We'll just trim it off with the scissors. There you go. Actually, what we'll do is before I cut that, again, just everything extra secure, I'm just going to add a drop of glue. And obviously don't get this in the eye of your fly if you can manage it. It's nearly empty. I definitely got a drop on it that time. So you could give it a second quick finish, but I think that's enough. With the super glue that'll be fine. Then you can dub it out. So this is a loon dubbing tool. I'm just going to give it a couple of brushes with this just to, let's say, get the dubbing going. And I'm inclined to brush down a bit. And then the good old reliable Velcro brush. And really lean on it with this. So, I'm not sure about to us, but to a fish, this looks very shrimpy. So I like to brush the hackle down to make it look a bit more leggy, like so. And there you have your, as we call it, a Bass Magnus, because we just thought it was funny because it sounded like Bass Magnet. But it's basically a pink Polar Magnus that's very effective for sea bass.